Hello and welcome to HyzerMedia's coverage of the Sellersville Upshot final round. We are here at the back 10 holes to finish out this tournament thanks to our tournament coverage sponsors Cosmic Disc Golf, D-Town Disc Golf, and of course Reaper Disc Supply. I'm Dave Oster here to bring you the conclusion of this tournament. We have a tight battle at the top and the rain is coming. As we start on hole 10, 275 blind uphill, basket to the right, elevated and on the hill, making it even more elevated. Starting us off will be Michael Panna, who is currently in the lead. Nice high stalling forehand, and gets it within the circle. Oh, rolls a bit away, probably still circle's edge. Mark Saraceno, only one stroke back. Similar line, a little bit lower. And goes a bit too straight. Probably still within circle 2 at least, on the hill. Could help him being closer to the height of the basket, as opposed to being at the bottom of the hill, putting very far up. Danny O'Brien taking a bit of a tighter line, catching one of the trees, guarding you getting close within circle 2. And Joe Lazur, not the best front nine, but plenty of golf left, going with the backhand turnover. Going a little low, fading out, but has a clear line through all the trees, and you can see the rain has started, so these guys have now turned into a battle not only against each other and the course, but trying to keep their discs and themselves, at least their hands, as dry as possible. Oh, and Danny trying to get just over those branches and catching one of those maybe phantom limbs from his perspective. And Mark with another big putt, cashing it from easily into circle 2 to an elevated basket. Another risk of this green could easily be the rollaways being so elevated. Mark not worrying about that as it stays in the basket. Michael lucky enough to sit. Putting from the low side of the basket, Danny's still able to save his par. Michael with a more even looking putt. And Joe also able to save his par, so 3 pars and the 1 birdie from the great putt from Mark. As we head over to hole 11, par 3, 215 feet, going back down the hill that we went up on hole 9. So short and downhill. Really the difficulty would be getting through the gap. Putter, maybe a mid-range if you have something real straight, and the creek is long behind, so a couple difficulties in this hole. Great little kick back into the fairway from Michael, giving him a look for his birdie. Danny doing a good job keeping his disc dry to the very last second. Again going with that forehand flip up. And flying past the basket, using that retaining wall to his advantage, will have a short birdie putt coming up. You saw the water pouring off of the camera bag. It is certainly coming down at this point. And Joe, by inches, missing hitting the gap cleanly. Looked like that was going to be good. Short enough that he'll have just a short forehand approach. Digs into that mud and parks it to save his par. Mark with another circle's edge, maybe a step outside. Putt and nails it. Again, very scary because just beyond that we saw is the creek with probably only a few feet of error room behind. Michael a few steps inside the circle, keeping pace. And After the putt on the last hole, Mark and Michael are now tied for the lead. Danny with a short putt to keep him within 2. Went just a bit high right. Danny having a few troubles on the green today. Probably would be just up there with Mark and Michael if it were a better day for him. But again, could be the conditions, could just be either physically the conditions or mentally where that puts you into. So still plenty of golf left, only 3 strokes back. Danny just tapping in his par putt, and we will be moving over to hole 12. Perhaps one of the signature holes on the course, 235 feet, throwing over the out-of-bounds creek almost the entire way. The only out-of-bounds is the creek. It can land on the left or the right side. Basket is on the left, so it's preferable. Close to the creek and guarded by one big tree, so definitely not an easy task, but plenty of bailout room to the left. Mark throws it a bit straight, but curls up and barely stays inbounds. Not between the creek and the basket would be where you think you're landing here. Probably trying to get left side of the basket, but Mark is parked and he'll be moving to 9 under, putting the pressure on Michael. Probably more of the traditional kind of play, trying to bail out to the left, still with probably a circle 1's edge putt to keep pace with Mark. So Danny looking at his hand, maybe slipped, trying to go with the flip up, but lands way high up on the hill on the right side. Not out of bounds, but will be an interesting spot to play from, having to go over the creek and climb up on the hill where the train tracks are.
There it is. Good shot,
Joe throwing a beautiful shot, just catching that tree, but staying within the circle and close. He'll have a putt for his birdie as well, albeit towards the creek. So Danny doing his best impression of a mountain goat, trying to get over the creek, probably just up and down, maybe giving it a bid, but a safe floaty bid, so knew it wasn't going to go too far. And Michael with a putt straight at the opening of Tunnel Creek and hitting metal, luckily sitting as well. And now Joe with the last actual putt for a birdie, and nails it. I say that being that Mark is all but parked, if not actually parked. Yep, he is actually parked. Not really even much more than a tap in. So he's able to take the outright lead at 9 down, as Michael is tapping in his par. And we'll move over to hole 13, the extremely elevated basket, 310 feet. The hill does play as a good backstop if you want to just try to hit it and skip up. Little muddy today to maybe be trying to skip too much, but it also kind of flattens off behind the basket if you want to just blast past it. Either way, this is one of those baskets where you don't really want to be super close because a extremely elevated putt is pretty difficult. Mark with the forehand bailing out to the right side. Probably circle's edge will still have a look at it. Joe going with the backhand. Laser shot right at it and hits that hill. And saved by that piece of wood. Very close. That's probably as close as you want to get. Any closer than that, you're really going to have to be throwing an overhead putt, which is not something that you practice every day, so We'll see if he has any difficulty from that 8-foot distance. And Michael with a beautiful shot, but again, he's going to be farther down from the basket than he is away from it, which we'll see if that gives him a little bit of difficulty. Really not the issue that you're going to be worried about being too close to the basket, but just of note on this hole, being that it adds more difficulty than it would in any other holes. Danny going just a bit past it, has a decent look back at it. And just right side again, that needs to sit down. And very fortunate being that there's a hill on both sides of the area where it was rolling. So he'll have probably a similar putt to Joe. And Mark skipping off the top of the basket. Tough to go too high to an elevated basket from a position even lower below the basket. But he's able to do it and then also make the comebacker, so. And Danny trying to match. Also making a very similar distance putt coming back. And he does so. And Danny's a pretty tall guy, and you could see the basket was about at top of his head, even when reaching. So, gives you kind of the perspective. Plus, it's elevated on a bit of rocks and on top of a mound. Joe with a nice birdie, and here we see Michael going with the basketball Calvin Heimberg putt. Almost going straight to the chains, but catching the back rim. Similar to, I guess, how you're aiming for a basketball shot. So, works out. Brings the leaders back to tied at 9. Hole 14, easily the longest hole on the course. 440 feet, par 3. Throwing from elevated position, so it's not the longest playing hole. Not playing as long as 440, but certainly have to have some distance to get all the way there. Most likely a 2-shot hole, especially when you're playing the style of the par 3's only course.
I was laughing at everybody.
And first 2 shots go to the right side. Mark looks like he's lining up something with a bit more hyzer to get it to go a bit straighter, maybe a headwind. And looks like he doesn't quite put enough hyzer on it. It's also going over to the right. Does get quite a bit of distance up there, so he'll have, so far, looking like the easiest approach shot. And Danny with the forehand. Catching a puddle, and that is not how you get any ground play, but good shot nonetheless. Keeping it right in the middle. Should have an even easier approach than Mark. And not quite as elevated, but on another mound, this basket will have the creek behind it eventually, but not super close. Joe wound up behind it, but not out of bounds. And Michael hit that mound and just barely skipped past it, so he'll have probably a 15 to 18 footer for his par. Oh, and Danny flies past it. Casual puddle. Creek is really not too much of a concern here. It's further back, but it's back there. And Mark kind of left some meat on the bone there. Danny with a putt to save his par. Oh, and the roll. Hit the cage, hit the chains, hit the cage again, and then icing on the cake. Rolled back almost to his feet. Mark also missing his par putt, so that'll be the first blemish on his scorecard of this round. And Danny's right side. He's been right side chains all day. So bogey for Mark, and Danny has this. Took that fairly casual, pitched in there for the double bogey. Hole 14 was playing as tied for the hardest hole on the course at a half a stroke above par. And this card unfortunately played about a quarter stroke worse than that on average. Michael able to make his par putt to take advantage of Mark getting the bogey, and Joe tapping in his par as well. As we move over to hole 15, par 3, 300 feet, out of bounds on the left side, marked by the yellow painted bricks. Big swamp over there, especially today. Don't want to have your disc land in there for sure. Pretty much want to go straight and then have your disc start fading, but not too much because the hill slopes more and more the further left you go. So really trying to match the ground play, match the angle of the ground, use the ground play to get up to the basket. But today, with it being very muddy, is going to be more difficult than in drier conditions, but maybe able to use the mud to get closer to the basket and slow your disc down. Michael turned this one over a bit too much, so he'll be up on the hill, maybe 100 feet or so from the basket. Mark trying to bounce back from that bogey. Throws it a bit high, but he gets over the limbs, misses everything, and hits the pin itself, keeping him from maybe rolling at least closer to the out of bounds, if not up and over that wall. And Danny just barely getting out of bounds with the forehand turnover. Forehand hyzer flip, that is. And Michael liked Mark's play from closer, using the pin to slow your disc down. That works as well. Danny to save his par just a bit low. Joe with a death putt look for a birdie and nails it, going towards the out of bounds and gingerly running down the hill, trying not to slip. But excited Joe with 3 birdies in the last 4 holes, I believe. So Mark taps in his par, and we're back to tied at 9. Hole 16, 245 feet. We see that the creek is very close to the basket. Nice picturesque waterfall flowing very well today with the weather. And it does shape for a forehand more than a backhand turnover with the low-lying limbs, but that brings in the skip play or running for the creek. So definitely a task, especially today. You do have the back wall that you could run straight into to try to slow your disc down. Mark takes this a bit wider. Oh, catches that stump and rolls towards the creek, but again, 3rd time this round, staying inbounds from the creek by mere inches. I think Mark might have hit that manhole cover, which is why he got such a big skip. Because as we see the rest of these discs getting almost no ground play. And screaming in Danny's disc, using that back to slow it down. Nickel catching metal. Air ball easily can go into the creek. It is probably 10 feet to the edge from there. Danny not able to take advantage of a good drive. Joe with the shortest putt up on top. The creek being so close, Mark is going to be putting probably within 15, 18 feet, but from a much lower position. But good putt for Joe. Good birdie. Now 4 of the last 5. He is making quite a comeback in these latter half of the round. So Mark, with the continued luck of staying inbounds narrowly, takes the one-stroke lead over Michael, going to 10 down on the tournament. Hole 17, par 3, 250 feet. Again, creek just beyond the basket, maybe even closer than in the last hole. Less of a drop-off, but does gradually go down towards the bank. So trying to keep it low. Come in there slow. Forehand play common. Again, maybe usually getting a bit of ground play. I've said it multiple times this round, but it really is one of the main challenges, making this course playing more difficult than it normally would have. But these players still scoring pretty well, and Mark just sails it, opening the door for Michael to catch up. That didn't even skip. I think that hit the water in the air, so maybe just a bit juiced, and his luck did run out. Finally able to go into the creek. And Mike, that needs to sit. Oh, Michael's disc trickles into the water. Needed that ground play to make it sit and did not. Got up onto its edge and slowly rolled into the creek. Fortunately, being so close, both of them will have short putts to save their par. And Joe with another great putt. Look out, he is coming back. As a reminder, there are 19 holes to this layout, so we have 2 holes to go after this one. So, still some time left. Michael retrieving his disc. And Mark with an even shorter par putt save. So, maybe that's part of the play, knowing that if you go out of bounds, it is so close. Nonetheless, no harm, no foul. 2 leaders both go out of bounds, both make their par putts, and we'll move over to another signature hole here at Sellersville. Hole 18, par 3, 210 feet, crossing the creek twice as it winds around. A safe play can be to just lay up 100 feet onto this grass we see in front of us, but most of these guys, especially in the MPO division, will be trying to get all the way across. There's more of a landing zone you think, and there's bricks as a little bit of a backstop, but the creek is also behind the basket as well, and close on the left side. Joe does a good job landing it, using that tree as a backstop. Mark going with the turnover, just barely catches that, and rolls down the bank, but does not go into the water. So Michael with an opportunity to tie it up, needs to capitalize on this shot, and hits the base of the pin and slows down by the bricks. That will likely be a birdie, and Mark not out of bounds, but par at best from where he is. Probably not trying to throw it in with only 1 hole to go and a creek behind. Danny with the forehand does sit, able to not go too far. And good up from Mark. Closer than it looked from the first shot, but still able to just go up and down. Danny just low. And Joe with a good opportunity for yet another birdie. 4 in a row. 6 of the last 7 holes. Joe has birdied. And if Mark and Michael weren't also doing fairly well in this back 10, Joe would be contending for the lead. Only one hole to go, but it is an island hole, so anything can happen. And here it is, hole 19, par 3, 202 feet, island hole. Have to land inside this island, otherwise you're going to a drop zone unless you cross inbounds and then go out of bounds, then you can take it where you went out. And the ground play to 4 or 5 feet for Joe, ending his round with yet another birdie. Not quite enough to get back to the leaders, but great round for Joe. Great back 10 specifically. So Michael, pitch short, and does wind up out of bounds. So opportunity for Mark, just needs to get it inbounds. And does so. Rolls away, has a bit of a death putt coming back, but he is in bounds. And narrowly in bounds for Danny. Had a bit of a struggle on the putting green today, but otherwise a pretty good round. So here there was a bit of controversy on the card. Like I said, if your disc crosses inbounds and then goes out, you're supposed to be able to take it where it goes out. The card did not see from where they were that was what happened. So Michael went to the drop zone thinking that he never crossed. Either way, it was a out-of-bounds stroke, which essentially just allowed Mark to lay up and didn't have to run his putt. Little unfortunate, but with the not having any eyes up on the green, it is part of the game, I guess. But as Mark taps in his par, he is today's winner of the Sellersville Upshot in the MPO division, shooting 10 down over 2 rounds. Pretty hot putts, a couple of big ones on the front 9 and the back 9, back 10 that is. So congratulations to him, coming up just 1 stroke over Michael. All these guys played pretty well regarding the conditions. Thanks to Norse gods for supporting us, and of course the Patreon family. Thank you to all of you for watching this and sticking all the way around to the end. We have lots of content coming out this year, so check out all of the different stuff that we have to offer, and hit subscribe so you are aware when they come out. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next hole.